Hi there. In this video we'll be covering how to write my own book. Understanding your motivation can help keep you going even when you want to give up. By the end of this video you'll learn the importance of understanding your reader's journey, why outlining is so important, and why research and interviews can help you round out your story. And stay tuned until the end of the video for an opportunity I really think you're going to enjoy. Let's dive in. Writing your own book can be such a challenge and it's such a struggle, but at the same time it's such an opportunity. It's an opportunity to tap into you. It's an opportunity to better understand your story. You know, there's so many times when people want to write a book and they have an interesting life, but what is it that they actually want to say? I remember reading about Rolling Stones singer Mick Jagger. So in the 1980s, Mick Jagger was writing a book and there was a ghostwriter attached to the project. And Mick met with this ghostwriter and there was a draft that was put together and it got shelved. It never got published because it was boring. Because no one thought it was worth publishing because, you know, there wasn't a lot of time between the ghostwriter and Mick. But at the same time, like, Mick didn't really go there. He didn't really say anything interesting and the book was flat and boring. So if Mick Jagger can write a boring book, so can you, so can me, so can anybody. But it really stands to reason that, you know, our stories, we can make them interesting. We can, and that's not to say like making things up to make them interesting. We need to bring value to the story. We need to make sense of the story. We need to unlock the power of the story. You know, if we can do that for ourselves, we can share our stories in such a fresh and refreshing way, in such an important, empowering way, that it moves people. I was watching recently the movie Better Man about Robbie Williams' life, and I was bawling by the end of it. I was so moved by his story, and the movie is based on his life, but it shows him as a monkey. It's interesting to think about the CGI process that they used to make it, but it was seamless. I was so drawn in by this, and the way they told it, you know, and the way that they took Robbie Williams' songs and incorporated them into his story, not so much as these moments of break and like invitations to entryways into different moments in his life, but as segues and story development. You know, they took a song from his solo career and used it when he was singing with this group. And it was really incorporated in this fresh and original way. And it was just, the whole thing was just so empowering. But yeah, I was like crying by the end of this movie and I was moved by it. You know, you can watch any movie or you can hear any story, you can read any book, and like, there's got to be something that moves you. There's got to be something in it for the reader. There's got to be something that carries it forward and makes you want to keep going with it. So it's not just about the person, the story that we're telling, it's about someone being moved by it. You know, think about that process. You know, what stories from your life move people? You know, when you tell a story, you can tell when people are engaged. You can tell when they're stuck on it. You know, and when you meet up with new people, other people you know are like, oh, tell them the story about this. You know, why is it that those stories resonate? What makes them impactful? And ultimately, what do they tell us about ourselves? You know, how can you take these stories and build them into this bigger picture, this bigger thing? You know, going back to the Robbie Williams movie, like it wasn't a reflection of every single event that happened in his life. There was a lot of them. You know, but they all tied to this central focus of him, you know, being the entertainer, being the performer, but stuffing his personal self aside and not really putting himself first, you know, and being selfish, yes, but like, you know, wearing the mask and not letting his true emotions in, you know, and not really healing himself. You know, at the end of the movie, they kind of cover that. But like, books are similar in a way. Like, what is your journey? What is your journey to healing, to closure, to new clarity, to understanding? What is your journey of purpose? You know, it's so great when you can see that being unlocked and you can move somebody with that. Your story can move somebody else. Your story can change somebody's life. You know, so it's a matter of unpacking it the right way. It's a matter of connecting the pieces, and it's a matter of understanding, you know, what moves people. You know, what's going to get people excited to keep reading. So as you think about writing your book, you have to do some deep digging. You have to really dig deep in yourself and figure out what makes my story matter. And then it's a matter of, talking to other people, doing research, digging within yourself. It's easy for us to forget things or to lose sight of things or tell things in a way that aren't realistic because our brains fool ourselves all the time. Or just not to remember things quite the same way. So you really need to kick back and talk to other people. Is this the way that this happened? Is this how you remember it? What do you remember from this moment? And get that triangulation going where you're getting 2 or 3 different people telling a similar story or finding the real truth at the core of this. This isn't just about you dumping your reflections onto the page. It's about doing the deep work. It's doing the deep work to figure out if your story's accurate, doing the deep work to confirm it, to show that you're being a reliable narrator, that you're a narrator worth following. If you have all these stories and they don't really line up, they don't actually relate to reality, the reader's going to lose sight of that really fast. They're going to say, I don't really trust this person. I don't want to keep going. You really need to be authentic to the truth when you're telling your story. This isn't about sugarcoating it to make yourself the winner. This is about being authentic and real and laying your vulnerabilities out and laying your struggles out and being open and honest in a way that's going to help somebody else. So once you've done all this hard work, once you've tapped into your story, once you've done your research, talked to people, you need to figure out how to structure this book, how to outline it. Outlining it's going to make it so much easier in the writing process. You can write and write and write and write on a hamster wheel ad nauseum for the rest of your life and never finish the thing because you don't have any structure to it. You really need structure to keep you contained, to keep your focus, to keep your energy, to keep everything direct in this little box. If you can do that and you can outline, it's going to make the writing process that much easier because now you have a guideline, now you have a structure. You have a way to make this all work together and flow. The next step is to get writing. Start writing. Write. Write any way you can, whether that's talking into an audio recorder and uploading your audio into an automatic transcription tool and using the transcribed audio as a base of words, whether that's sitting at the keyboard, anything that works for you, great. Figure it out. Find the thing that taps into your ability to get words down consistently and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. This is a measure of consistency. Writing a book is all about consistency. A lot of people have momentum and they have writing talent and they sit down and they make some progress and then they get stuck. Think about all the times that people sign up for a writing course or something. They take the course, they write tens of thousands of words, and then the book gets shelved. The book gets pushed aside into a drawer, and then people move on because they have other things going on in their life. This process is really about continuing that momentum and building it week after week after week, finding something to keeping you going, and that really means taking away the friction points, taking away the struggles. Finding whatever it is that's going to allow you to make progress on your book and to keep doing it. And to keep doing it again and again and again. Because if you keep showing up and keep doing the work, good things can happen. So here's the thing that most people aren't going to tell you. A lot of the books out there, a lot of the really good books out there, weren't written just by the people whose names are on the cover of the book. They were written with the help of other people like me, the guy behind the guy, people behind the people. Open the acknowledgments of some popular books and see whose names are listed. Oh, I worked with this person as my story expert. This person was my editor. This person was this person was that. A lot of times, it's an easy way to say book ghostwriter. These are people who work with others to help them tell their story. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in it. The most popular books in the world have been ghostwritten. So that's not to say that you can't ghostwrite either. But when you think about writing your book and your message and your story, there's reasons why these popular books are so well told and so well structured. It's because there's all these hidden professionals behind the scenes helping along. So the idea that you're going to go out of the gate and write the perfect book just from scratch, it's almost impossible. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, and I'm not discouraging you, but it's really, really tough. I know for myself, I started working on a book 5 years before I became a book ghostwriter, and I'm so glad that I spent the time working as a book ghostwriter for a couple years before that first book was published, because it was that much better, because I understood how to write a book. But even then, I still didn't quite know. I was still learning. It took me 5, 6, 7 years before I really unlocked my power and purpose as a book ghostwriter. And it's been so awesome to be able to help people take their message, take these unfinished stories and bring them forward. That they were stuck and we started working together, and the next thing you know, here they have a draft. And now they have this book and they're holding it in their hands. This book that they never thought that they would ever finish. You might feel like that too. You might feel stuck. You might feel like you're hitting a wall. You might feel like it's not as good as it could be. You know, you could have a draft and say, I need some guidance and support to just make it a little bit better. You know, maybe that's all it needs. So it's a matter of keeping an open mind, because there's no shame in reaching out for help. There's no shame in getting help. You know, and that help is going to help you write the best book possible. That's going to have the biggest outcomes. That's going to hit the most people. That's going to hit people the hardest when they do read it. So don't be afraid to reach out for help. Don't be afraid to get some guidance and support. I know how tough this is to write a book, and I can't even imagine doing it alone, especially when you're telling a life story like that. Like, you know, you want to make sure to do it right. I often tell the story of when I was a kid and my parents gave me this Micro Machines, like naval air carrier toy for Christmas. And I wanted to jump ahead and put the stickers on it myself. And my mom wanted to help with it. And like, she went out of the room and I ended up just putting the stickers on myself, and they were just all in the wrong place. And like, she tried to fix it, but it wasn't as good. Just because like you know, when you stick those stickers, especially in the 80s and 90s, like, they easily like lose the adhesive behind it, and like the stickers just didn't look as good. I think about that with book writing a lot. People just want to do it themselves. They want to jump ahead. They don't quite know what they're doing. And I was like 7 or 8 at the time I did this. You know, people don't quite know what they're doing with books, but they say, I want to do this. I want to go ahead. And it's like, just take a moment. Talk to somebody. You know, connect with an expert. There's a reason why this process is so hard. There's a reason why so few books really unlock it fully and get it right. And when they do, it can be life-changing. You know, so don't be afraid to reach out for help, because, you know, help can just take your book and your message to that next level. And when it happens, it can be such an empowering thing. If you want to learn more about how to write my own book, I would love to meet with you. I'd love to discuss your project. Head to my website. It's goodghostwriter.com. You can click the link below and schedule a one-on-one, completely free strategy call with me. I would love to talk to you. I'd love to hear more about your perspectives, you know, what the challenges are that you're facing, and any guidance I can offer to help you on your way. Remember, a good book can change your life. I'm Dan Good. Thanks for watching.